You know, sometimes pairings are obvious. Peanut butter and jelly, salt and pepper, Lisa Bryant and Jimmy Hoppa.
It just makes perfect sense. Sometimes, though, it's not immediately obvious, but the connection does run deep. So often people battling addictions are also suffering from mental illness. In this week's Wellness Wednesday, Delmarva Life's Katie Zerilli sits down with Mike Trader of the Worcester County Health Department to learn about the array of mental health services that they have available.
When it comes to the fight for good mental health, the first step is a transition in terminology.
I think when we talk about mental health, a lot of times what we're really talking about is mental illness is really what people are talking about. And I would love for us to change that in dialogue. We should really be talking about mental wellness, right? When you think about wellness, wellness is a spectrum. So everybody, if you think about your physical health, there are some folks who are much less healthy, and there are folks who are much more healthy. And we all exist somewhere on that spectrum. And I think mental health is very much the same way.
Mike Trader is the Assistant Director of Behavioral Health Services at the Worcester County Health Department. He says, of course, people's spot on the spectrum is going to change throughout various stages of their lives. And at any given time, they themselves know best where they sit.
When you feel like you're struggling, that's when you're struggling. It's really that person's perspective. Everybody has a different perspective and a lens that they see the world through. And if their perspective is that they're struggling, reach out and call us.
The Worcester County Health Department offers an array of mental health services for folks of all ages. They've got all types, from outpatient to school-based to psychiatric to case management. Their therapists have their master's level license, and some have certain specialties and certifications.
We really are prepared to deal with everything from, an adjustment disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, folks with bipolar disorder, even psychosis, whatever, depression, anxiety.
Mike says folks who battle addiction oftentimes have an underlying mental health condition. They're known as co-occurring disorders.
And it's so very important that we deal with both of those things simultaneously. A large number of those folks have histories of trauma or chronic stress. And what we find time and time again is folks who have struggled with addiction for so long, who have gotten clean, who've relapsed, and just can't seem to stay clean, can't seem to make their way into sustained recovery. And a lot of times what we find out is that it's because there's an underlying mental health condition, or there's some underlying trauma. There was something that happened, or there were things that happened that have never been dealt with and resolved.
And resolving that is going to be crucial for a rewarding recovery.
When we talk about trauma, when we talk about chronic stress, it actually changes the way your brain works, right? And so your brain starts operating in a different way, starts looking for different things. And oftentimes what we find is that folks, in a way of trying to cope and manage the internal pain that they're dealing with, turn to substances, right? So as they turn to substances, that becomes the way of coping and the way of managing. What we find then is that when those folks get clean and stop using, those symptoms come back, and they don't have a good way to cope and to manage that.
Through treatment, they can learn to cope and manage through cognitive behavioral therapy.
Cognitive behavioral therapy deals with your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, right? So by changing your actions, which is your coping strategies and how you cope, you can start to change those feelings and those thoughts. You then also really want to get into challenging those thoughts.
Mike says treatment is individualized, and never does it only include medication.
We always believe that medication is not a standalone answer, right? Medication, and studies have shown this time and again, the medication is most effective when it's coupled with treatment, with the therapy piece.
Those seeking treatment should first reach out to their insurance companies. According to Mike, it's important to him that cost of services isn't a giant concern.
We never ever want finances to become a barrier to somebody getting treatment.
Another barrier they work to eliminate: geography. They have locations in Ocean City, Berlin, Snow Hill, and Pocomoke. They'll also train folks who might be worried about their loved ones.
Come talk to us, and we'll teach you how to what to look for and when to know that your loved one is struggling, and how to reach out and how to get help, and do those sorts of things.
In some cases, treatment takes years. For others, it's quicker. No matter the amount of time, the success stories are special.
I've had it happen to me where I've been out in the community and had a former client walk up and say, "This is how I'm doing now. Here's my child. Let me tell you about my job." and it's this kind of wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Diving deep into the brain is undoubtedly hard work, but it's work that's worth it for a happier, healthier life.
Wouldn't you agree that it just makes sense to take care of what's going on up here is just as important as what's going on with the rest of your body as a whole?